Welcome to Sunday Story Hour, where we share real-life stories of how human design has helped our guests know themselves on a deep, transformative level. By knowing and trusting ourselves, we develop deeper, more honest relationships and unlock our true gifts. I'm Kathy Bashanko, and my guest this week is Adrienne Roach. Adrienne is a 1-3 Ego Manifestor, and she's going to tell us about her human design beginnings. And we're going to do our third beginning at this because this eclipse portal or something has some voodoo stuff going on. And Adrienne, we know, already has like her own little magic that goes on. So she's just getting really good at informing here, right? So hopefully, and while you're starting to tell your story again, I'm going to make sure we're streaming in the right place.
Okay.
And the last time I think we were, but someone told me we weren't and I ended. So, okay.
Yeah,
Ready?
I think. Sure. Okay.
Yeah.
Thanks.
Take 30.
Welcome me. This is like Groundhog's Day, but with a really awesome person. So I don't mind doing this over and over with you, Kathy. So my human design origin story. So while Kathy is kind of checking into where I'm pretty sure this is recorded somewhere at this point by now, but
it's here. I see it, and I'm going to pin it to the top of the group too.
Perfect.
If it'll let me.
Perfect.
It's here.
Yes.
We'll leave it at that.
So I have at this point been able to like pinpoint my origins of human design to one very enthusiastic idiot. And he was a generator who was very excited about human design. He had learned about it somewhere, and he was kind of into other stuff anyway. He's like a lifelong seeker. I was into astrology, and it's like, yeah, I'm going to run your chart. He already had my birth information from running an astrology chart for me. And he's like, oh, I have exciting news for you. You're a manifestor. And I was like, that meant absolutely nothing to me at that point. And at that time, the extent of what he knew about human design, he was very clear that I was non-sacral, but his interpretation or whatever he had learned up to that point, pointed him to the idea that we should have sex because he was sacral and I was non-sacral. And there was going to be some great energetic thing that happened. And as a matter of fact, it was hilarious because at one point he was like trying to collect non-sacral women. It was a very strange thing. So I was like, no, thanks. I don't want to be in your, whatever this is, whatever this strange thing is. And I do remember seeing my human design chart and just thinking it was just so indecipherable. Like, what is this? It was like, if someone gives you a schematic for, electronics or some other, like a machine that is not familiar to you, or even is familiar to you, but you don't understand, like electronics, it's just foreign. But this thing was supposed to be talking about me. And it was like, kind of, they had a little body behind it. It's like a body graph, but like you see a person behind it. It's like, oh, is that me? And, but I didn't really do much on it. At the time, this is almost 9 years ago, there wasn't a lot of information online about human design. It was sparse and kind of sketchy.
I remember even 7 years ago, what I found made me go, it made me wait 3 more years to really dig anymore. I mean, I just kind of played with it on my own and this is some weird stuff. I couldn't find anything.
Yeah. It just seemed a little weird to me. And also, I mean, it was just like, one more thing to learn. But I am a 1-3. So eventually just, it caught hold of me, and there was a few more circumstances around that same person. The one thing was, I got introduced to and told that there was a kind of a mutual friend who was also a manifestor. And it was after I met her. So I met her first, and I remember just feeling this strange connection with her. Like, we hugged entirely too long for two strangers to be hugging. And she was like a 4-6 emotional manifestor. Her name's Nikiba Ellington. I love her. She's my best friend.
You know that before the hug or after?
I did not. I didn't know at the time. At the time, it was just like, it felt like, it's really interesting too, because I have 2 sisters that are around her age, but she's like, it felt like big sister energy. And I just hugged her and I was like, okay. I love this lady and I'm not really 100% certain why. And we just, got along instantly. And so, the dude that told me about human design, he was like, oh yeah, well, he was a manifestor too. And so we started hanging out with each other. We ditched him. We didn't really hang out with him anymore. We started hanging out together. And I purchased like Karen Curry Parker's Understanding Human Design, which I still think is one of the most clear books about human design. It's well organized is what it is. It's like just so well organized. And I think I bought a few books from like Jovian Archive, which were super expensive at the time. That was like the first time I wasn't in college and I bought $150 book and I was like, what am I doing? But we had gotten, at that point, we were pretty wrapped up into like, what is this? And, I really wanted to explore deeper. And so Makita and I became like study buddies. We were meeting twice a week for about 6 months, having study sessions and just like discussions and learning a lot about ourselves and implementing experiments. So it was really cool. I think that for me, my beginnings, starting with like, someone who imperfectly informed me about human design, but being, a spark for the curiosity to happen, introduced me to my best friend ever, and actually led me to start something called ManiSisters because I wanted other women to have study buddies, especially other Manifestor women. So Manifestor women, you guys are going to need like someone else to talk to about this, especially because, and this, not just studying human design, but as you're implementing your experiment and as you're starting to change things and approach things differently and use your energy differently, like your world changes dramatically and you need someone else there to, I call it like, coordinate reality for you. So you don't think you're going nuts. You're just experiencing whatever this process is. Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. So that was 9 years ago.
Yeah.
And how recognizable is that person compared to who you are now?
Not at all. Like, at that time, I would say I was, behaving like, I think non-sacrals and the whole world has this idea when you talk about manifesting generators. Oh, they're all over the place. I was actually all over the place. I was a super manifesting generator. I was working a corporate job. I worked for a Fortune 10 company. I went into a 9-to-5 job, and not to say 9-to-5 jobs are not good. I mean, honestly, I can operate pretty okay inside of an organization, depending on the size of it. But like, I was working a job and I had like 2 side hustles. So I was I did cannabis for a while. I just did so many things while working at a real job. It didn't make any sense. So I was just doing a lot. I looked a lot busier than I do now. The difference in the amount of activity and the amount of, kind of energetic commitment that I was making outside of myself changed a lot. And it's really interesting because when you ask me that question, it reminds me that in a lot of ways, there's a lot of grief around that, a grief around becoming a different person. So like, I tell people like, oh yeah, no, human design is great for you. But really it can produce such a change in your life that you are unrecognizable after 7 or 8 years. And I'm a much kinder person. And I laugh a lot more. And I always laughed. I was always kind, but the nature of my laughter and my kindness, the quality of it has changed quite a bit.
It's funny that you bring up the laughter because I told my husband last night, I said, I'm really excited about this conversation because Adrienne is so funny and fun and she makes me laugh. And, that's just so different than what we think about as, when you think Ego Manifestor, right? You think, whoa, right? It's like this, right? The stereotype that people have. But, I don't feel that with you, but yet I definitely feel the strength of who you are in everything that you do. And that's what I think is so beautiful. And then, so I wanted to kind of go back to the question I asked in our first attempt to do this, where I was streaming, I guess, on my personal page or anywhere like that. And I think it's related to all this. And that is the idea of being a woman and being a manifestor. And for, the energy of a manifestor, for those who are not aware, manifestor are only 9% of the population. And you're pretty much here to experience rejection, right? Because you're here to just start things and have no attachment to whether or not they go anywhere in a lot of cases. You're here to initiate, inform, and get on with your life. And the not self of the manifestor is anger. And women are not meant to do or I shouldn't say meant to, are conditioned to not do any of those things in society. Then you add on the layer of being a Black woman, who we have this stereotype of the angry Black woman that anytime a Black woman shows any kind of anger, it's so, right? So I'm just wondering if you can speak a little bit to all of that in your deconditioning process.
Oh, yeah. It's
that's pretty much the rest of the show. No, I'm just
right. Okay, there is a lot. And I will say that this is a really important conversation. So first, I started an organization called ManiSisters, and really it started off as a Facebook group. We've done retreats, we do online events and things like that. And I do that because, like I said, when I started studying human design, I didn't feel there wasn't a lot of information. And even in the spaces where I could get information or could get interaction, like in Facebook groups, it was overwhelmingly no color. Everybody was, and not just no color. It was they were European. It was there was a lot of cultural bias. Oh, you're an American. You're from the US. Oh, and you're also it was just very strange coming into the space. And then taking it a bit further, when you're looking at some of the original materials and you're looking at, what is told to Manifestor Women, there's just a few paragraphs. And basically one of the things Ross says, I kind of don't know how Manifestor Women do it. And then he just kind of moves on. I feel bad for a Manifestor woman. I'm like, okay, well, why do you feel bad? And I then had to start looking at my own life because there are a lot of societal expectations and gender roles around women. And, from culture to culture, it's different. But across the world at this time, there are a lot of kind of similarities. Women are supposed to be nurturing and kind and loving and giving. And in a lot of ways, the Manifestor woman has to reject many of those archetypes to not do them as they are modeled out in the world, right? So I can be quite nurturing, but my nurturing will not look like the nurturing of someone who's going to be able to show up for you. I can't be there because energetically, I don't have control over how my energy works. Once I had to release the idea that I have control over how I show up, then all the mental stimulation around those gender roles kind of fell off because I realized I was faking response. And when you're faking response, what you're faking is the generator response is such a deep and beautiful process, right? It's something inside of the generator recognizes or responds to something outside of itself, and it opens up a well of energy. And this well of energy is the generator's birthright. So I'm a manifestor. So in being opposite of that, what happens is I have to fake it out. I fake it up with my personality, right? And I fake I'm opening up an endless well of energy that's going to be enthusiastically there to respond to something. And it's a lie. And I feel that lie in my body as anger. It's unraveling my DNA. It's harming me to the core. And until you can realize that and actually accept that. And like I said, there is grief here. There's grief in that I don't have that access, but then there's joy in the fact that I have a different job to do. So it's not like I don't have a purpose. It's just I've been misused because of, these expectations, So I had to I guess as a manifestor, accept the fact that yes, I do have this aura. The aura of the manifestor is like opaque. You can't really see through it. Partially because there's some secret stuff happening down here. Don't worry about it. It's not your business yet. I'll let you know. It's like a little bit secret back there. It's even a secret to me though. So how about that? I would love to tell you that as a manifestor, I actually know what I'm going to initiate at any given time. Honestly, I am finding out probably just as I'm doing it, sometimes a little bit after, like, oh, I just did this. I better tell people. That's kind of how things sometimes work for me. And after observing not like thousands of manifestors, I've observed thousands of manifestors and I've observed my own process pretty deeply. The yang aura, this, we think of yang and we think masculine because we made those associations, but yang literally just means kind of a pushing out aura. It can push. And it's doing that to protect a delicate process on the inside. So manifestors are one of two types that have a different-ish relationship with the program, right? So generators and projectors have a relationship with each other. And reflectors and manifestors are actually in strange commune with the program. And literally, if I am pretending to be a generator, then I never achieve any amount of peace so that I can watch this internal process. So whereas the reflector is worked on by the program from the outside, the manifestor is worked on by the program from the inside. And that's why we have to have our eyes cast inward so that we can see inspiration when it happens. If we are not doing that, then you get a very, very angry being. And instead of, so anger, is I would say that is the polarity for the manifestor's true strategy, right? So you've heard that our strategy is informing, and that is not true. Informing was made up because Rob was like, listen, I know you guys gotta work and eat. So you gotta get along with people. So you gotta work and eat. And, in a lot of ways, informing is sophisticated people pleasing. So if you go too far, you get angry because you're from informing. Informing actually can create resistance. So it's made up and it can help sometimes. But I personally, I don't know. I've been playing around, I've been experimenting with how I inform. And I think informing is an art. And I do appreciate Rob for making it up. But our true strategy is actually just inspired action. And anger is the flip side, the bad side of the coin of inspired action, right? It is inspired, but it's outspired. Usually you're angry about something out there. Well, you were already looking in the wrong direction in the first place. It's partly why I avert my eyes. People will ask me all the time, did you see that? Did you hear it? Hell no, I didn't see it or hear it or nothing. I'm so sorry. I have myself, I have ways of getting information about what's happening in the world so that I don't have to constantly look at it. Yeah.
Wow, I'm like trying to digest all of this like earth-shattering stuff you just told me. I mean, I have a manifestor daughter, so and there was a point where a lot of what you're talking about, me being a projector, I'm thinking, oh, that helps me to understand her. And there were certain things you were saying where I was like, yeah, I can relate to the whole thing when you were saying about the fake sacral feeling, right? Like, so I get all that, but then when you shifted to talking about the different role, I was like, yeah, I can see that. And so, when you look at the totality of a chart, like you're a 1-3, you're really meant to go inward. But I immediately think about my daughter who's a 2-4 and who's meant to have this network. And yet she's, how's she going to do that if she's not meant to really kind of care? Right?
Well, it's not that you don't care, but I will say this, because I don't think anyone cares as deeply Well, I mean, all people care, I'm sure, but I care deeply about people. I just can't care about everybody all the time. And once I had to I just got really honest with that. I think there's a lot of people who want to look like they care a lot about everybody, and maybe they're built that way. Because I also leave a lot of space for the idea that someone is built differently than me. I'm a 1-3. I am definitely all here for the internal thing. But I will say that when I think about like a 2-4, the way I tell people about the 4, it's like, hey, it's not just network. Like, dive deeper into what a network is. Networks are, I call them friends of utilization, people that they're useful. So it doesn't just mean knowing everybody. Usually a network is identifiable by, similar interests or like there's something that ties a network together. And that's why you can get networked because, someone over here is a plumber and this person is a plumbing supply. Well, they need to have a relationship, but that doesn't mean you have relationships with everyone. It really does mean becoming so, selective. And as a 2-4, you're waiting for the right network to call you out. So do you feel, recognized in that? And then as a manifestor, you're probably trying to be not trying to be, but you're going to be recognized for something you did versus, or something that you do. So for me, if I were a 2-4, I don't show up to do anything besides show up as myself. Like if you called me and said, Adrienne, I really want you to could you look at my website and tell me, I wouldn't be able to do that because, and especially if I was a 2-4, it's like you're misusing who I am. You haven't seen me. The 2 has projection around it. But yeah, I think it's really important for it because there's all these different things that you can look at in your chart. I think type though, it's like there are some things that are really high level on type that adjust your energy. And it is about the place you are on your journey, right? For one part of my journey, I had to retreat from the world entirely, which was scary. Because I was
what did it look like for you?
It looked like it just, I had, even now to this day, most of my family does not have a way to contact me directly. My one sister does. Everybody else is spinning around. They have to go through her, and she's a generator and she loves me and she just does it for me because she loves me and she understands I'm in this season. But I think that it looked like the momentum drained right out of my life, right? I had been going in one direction because I didn't find human design until I was in my mid-30s. And I will say this to people, the older you are, I think sometimes it can be a little more dramatic how the shift looks.
Try finding it when you're already 50 and a 6 line who's already off the roof.
Oh, exactly.
Yeah.
That's what my friend Makiba, she was like, I'm coming off the roof right now. And I just got this. What the heck? Yeah, exactly. So for me, it looked like just taking my energy back from all of these extemporaneous activities that I had been engaged in all the time. The ways that I had been moved by fear, obligation, and guilt by other people. Also during this time, I was going through my Uranus opposition. So I had a parent die. So my mom passed away and it was okay, well, she knew me the longest. And if there was anybody I would do things out of obligation for, it would be her. And it just gave me permission to not operate that way with people anymore. I mean, that was part of my deconditioning because prior to that, it's well, if you love me, you do things for me. I have Chiron in Taurus. We could talk about that one day. But yeah, it was just one of those things where I realized that I had put out and had left loose ends of energy all out there in the world. And that it was up to me to clean those up. And cleaning those up meant just taking my energy back and going into a cocoon. During that time, I came up with this concept I call the pink chrysalis. I was in there.
Okay. Can you explain that concept a little bit?
Yeah.
I've used the chrysalis analogy a lot, but
yeah, for sure.
It's the same.
Yeah, for me, it was just that I recognized I was going through a massive energetic shift, right? So my body was changing, my way of thinking and seeing the world was changing, my energy was, I was just going through massive change. And I had first had to recognize that was happening. And if you don't recognize that you're in that situation, you tend to resist it or fight it. And by naming it something and giving it space in my life, it allowed me to sink deeply into it. And from the outside, if someone had been judging it, they might have been like, "Is she depressed?" Because I did have someone who appeared to have had some concern for me. But I find that also, like, sometimes people's concern is really just like what's under concern is fear. Mm-hmm. And I wasn't afraid. I was embracing the fact that I was kind of melting away. And when I say I was melting away, like this construct, this system of memories, this system of ways of being that I had cultivated for years in response to conditioning, in response to society's expectations, all these things were just falling down like a house of cards. And that's what it looked like for me. I lost my house. I had, at the time, I have a daughter. She's a projector, 1-3 projector. She got into human design like a year after I got into it. So like when I've been in like almost, she's this, she knows more about human design. She's a projector. Y'all would get in there and it's like, you really know human design. I remember we were playing lectures in the dining room all the time. That was our workspace. And I remember coming in, listening to the the projector empowerment series. And I'm like looking at her and I'm just watching. I'm like, this is happening to you. Like something's going on with you, because she was changing. And anyway, all of that to say, like, the reason she got interested in human design is because I started treating her differently. I did a pretty good job as a parent before human design. But when human design came along and I was able to see into her chart these little hints and clues about ways in which I could be pressuring her to be something different, or I could be conditioning her to do something different. And she'd always been like a little mountain the whole time. So I never could push her. She has a defined root. I do not. I could never push her. But then we were able to see some things. And by seeing those things and depressurizing, even her going to college, like she was in school, art school. And I just when I was able to tell her, and I paid cash for college. Art school's expensive, y'all. I was paying cash at the time. But I told her, go have a good time. Go art, because she loved arting. And I'm like, go art your heart out and have this relationship of curiosity with everything that you're doing. And literally that kind of perspective shift is even why today she's my business partner. That experience all those years ago in that way,
How old was she when you started? I'm trying to remember. So 9 years.
She's 25 now. So I'm pretty sure she was 16 when I found human design and really started.
Typical age. So, wow. Okay. And for those that don't know, you two are running a business together. And I just want to clarify to everyone, and I want to make sure, Adrienne, since we got started so late, are you okay with going a little later today? Yeah. Okay, great. Awesome. So we're going to be continuing past the top of the hour, guys. So, and we've got a lot of comments already in here, but I want to continue with the idea of deconditioning and the anger, and whether you found your anger got worse during the process. Because, for me, I know I felt like as I was really deconditioning, I got deep in the projector bitterness. Like it was coming out big time in that whole process. And it was really, I felt stuck in it for a while. And I'm wondering if that anger did the same thing with you at all, or what you can speak to that a little bit.
Yeah. So as we were talking earlier, especially, being in this spacesuit, it's a special trip on its own. And so, when I'm in spaces and people want to bring up race or identities, and then people want to shut that conversation down because, human design and, deconditioning is going to fix all that, which is not true. Because literally you can have, what do you call it? Like unconscious bias. Mm-hmm. And so here I am walking around. I'm a Black woman. So the first thing that I will say about being a woman is our standard out of the box conditioning is to shut down anger. Mm-hmm. Anger is not encouraged. Like literally, one of the most, like there's like the most acceptable emotion for women seems to be like fear. Fear is acceptable. Like you can be afraid. And men actually, they're acceptable. They can have an acceptable anger response. And a lot of other emotions are shut down. So as a woman, I actually hadn't been angry for a long time. So I get to human design, I'm like 36 years old, somewhere around there. And when I read like, oh, you're a manifestor and the not self is anger, I'm like, well, shoot, I must be perfect because baby, I haven't felt anger ever. Like I don't feel anger. I haven't felt anger since my early 20s. And what I realized is like, no, I was just shut down. As in the neurodivergent community, call it masking. Well, I was just masking anger and rage, and it was coming out as, a rash on my skin, and what do you call it? An autoimmune disease.
Yes, that's a great point.
It's, you know what I mean? So it's literally just sublimated into a different form in your form. So in my body, I had rage constantly in my body. And it came out, well, I'm across the tension, and the tension is on my body. So like I call it the tension parts are on my body side, the fighting parts. But my body was like tense and hard. The way I held myself was almost always in defensiveness. And I realized that the anger hadn't been expressed. So there was a period of time where I would say like the ability to express anger presented itself. And I was afraid of it at first, because I was like, is this going to be my future? Do I just become like a rage monster? Is that what happens? Is that who I'm going to be? And then I would, of course, being in so many different like human design communities and talking to people, it's like, well, rage is not self and anger is not self. And I'm like, yeah, but it's also said that it's just a part of our body chemistry. Like I just have a body chemistry that's more highly tuned to become angry. Right. So where some people have like, their genetic disposition is to be tall. My composition is that I have the ability to become angry, and that ability, because I want to call it an ability, it's not a disability. It's actually a part of how I'm designed. It's not a bug. It's a feature.
Right.
My anger as a manifestor is a feature. And just like, bitterness to some degree is a feature. Now, we can't live in these body states because the chemistry of them harm you. But the worst and scariest form of anger is the anger that isn't expressed because you don't even know you don't know that it's anger. I didn't know that like these little health quirks and autoimmune diseases, that was my anger. That was my anger manifesting in my body. And in ways, because I could not express it and had no way to address it, there was nothing I could do about it. And, anger is an emotion of getting you have to get something, you can get something done with anger. So you get angry if something's in your way. You get angry if something tries to attack you, and you need to be angry because honestly, you need that juice to do the thing.
Well, Karen Curry Parker teaches that it's the interruption of your internal creative flow, right? That thing that for manifestors and to a certain extent, manifesting generators, that motor to the throat energy that is, saying, it's time to act. It's time to do this, and for the manifesting generator, it's in response, but it's still this energy of, I need to do this, and it gets interrupted. And so I feel like that's where the inform came from, is so that you're not as likely to get interrupted. And it's a way of minimizing those interruptions, and so then it's a gift, right? Because it shows you, oh, maybe I need to tell these people next time.
Yeah, well, sometimes it backfires. Okay. Sometimes it backfires. Like literally, you can tell somebody you're doing something, and because they are far too concerned about your stuff, they'll block you. So you could literally have done it in secret or without them knowing. So, typically you say, oh, inform who's going to be, who's going to be impacted. So this is why you have to know your impact. Like, who does this affect? And in some ways you have to judge how it affects them. I have a video out there on YouTube, and I talk about like surprise parties, where I'm not going to tell you about your surprise party, right? Because if I told you about your surprise party, it'd take all the surprise out. Most projectors don't really like surprises, but anyway, and you shouldn't. But like,
projectors will figure out there's a surprise party, even if tell them we'll know.
But the reason I use the analogy is because then, that's a benign example of when I wouldn't want to inform someone, even though it is going to impact them. Right. So then there's all types of scenarios where you can switch all that stuff around. It could be that it will impact that person. Like there was something I wanted to do, and it was going to be it was going to be something that like I knew my family would not be supportive of. It's one of my little 1-3 adventures. I do weird shit sometimes. And so I'm going to one of my little 1-3 adventures, and they fear for me. And the thing about it is, women are told that if someone has concern for you, that is a form of love. And that if someone expresses that, that's beautiful. But see, for a manifestor, sometimes that looks like you getting in my way of doing what I want to do. And I understand your concern, but I'm not asking for permission. Informing is really just a warning shot. It's not like, unless I'm trying to get you involved. So if I'm telling you because you'll be impacted, it's really mostly courtesy. Yeah. Unless I need your energy. If I need your energy, then you have the right of refusal. I just have to accept that and either ask you differently or move on. Yeah.
And that's interesting that you add that caveat about needing your energy, because as the parent of a manifestor, there were times she had to inform us because she needed our help in some way, even as a young adult now. But there's a lot of stuff now that she just doesn't tell us. And that's fine. That's as it should be, probably for any young adult moving away, getting out from. But there was a time when I had to realize that we were conditioning her to keep secrets from us because we were getting in the way every time she told us something she wanted to do. And so, especially as a manifestor, she's meant to just act on her, and a splenic manifestor at that, she's meant to act on her own impulses and her own instincts. And every time, her dad would say, well, how are you going to pay for that? What's going to happen if this happens? And she just has to, right? So I've learned to just say, okay, thanks for letting me know, to most crazy things she tells me now. Right?
Yeah. I mean, I learned that is so big, because it's like the questions of like the how and why. I think I talked about this at the conference, but I have like a little kind of like a scale of like how heavy a question is. How and why are like the heaviest questions. Like why you can cheat on, but like I don't know why I do most of the things, especially if it's a real manifestor urge from out of nowhere. I just have zero idea what it's about. Why I'm doing it. I'm doing it because I want to. That's like, can that be the answer? A lot of times that's not a really acceptable answer. So sometimes I might make up reasons, but who, what, when, where, those are easy to answer. And so if the questions go beyond that, like how are you going to do this? How are you going to pay for that? How? And it's like, unless I've asked you to pay for it, don't worry about it. And that's like hard for people.
Funny that you say that, because you and I both have the gate of how, the gate 64 is how. Yeah. And you and I both have that as our only gates defined in our whole head and ajna. I also have the open, completely open ajna and only have gate 64 on my head. Now yours is your Venus. So that's really interesting as how that would play out in your relationships, where mine's Pluto, which, Pluto is all about transformation. So I guess how is always wondering how is transformative for me.
Yes.
For you, it's relational. So
yeah,
but that's interesting.
Yeah. And it's really interesting that you say that, because I always experiment in relationships because, and like how we relate, because it's
separate, not with the guy who wanted to know about the sacral thing. I'm just kidding.
Oh yeah.
Just kidding.
Not at all, ma'am.
Pyramid. Different kind of relations.
Hilariously, I actually gave this man physically. I had a very impressive physical library of human design stuff when I lost everything and I left town and I gave it to him for safekeeping because I knew he would. I said, you should study these while I'm gone. I came back and got my books and he hadn't learned anything. And I was like, give me my books. You're still where you are. One of the things I wanted to circle back around to, though, you did ask about race and being the angry Black woman. So here's the thing. Like I told you, I had gotten all the way up into my 30s for the most part, and had, in my workplaces, I was always like, she's bubbly, she's nice, we're all in customer service in some way or another. So I always gave great service and all of this. And I very rarely I didn't get a label of angry Black woman, but what I did get was that how should I say this? That I was like, I was forceful in some ways. Like I could assert boundaries. So people, and I don't know, I did it pretty delicately. And I think that for me as a manifestor is a skill set that I would cultivate, because really, if you're, what does it say? If you're a hammer, everything looks like a nail. Yeah. So if you're walking around like you're being a rage monster, your only way of dealing with things is like through rage. And it's a great way we're already supposed to be on the edges of the people, like the edge of society. That as a manifestor, I occupy edges. If you find me in a room, I might not be in the middle of the room. I might be off to the side near the door, ready to go. So for me, it was, I had a way of also getting people to work for me, because I was a project manager at my very last job. It was my job to have people working for me, right? Like I didn't have tangible results of my own work. My tangible results were other people's tangible results. And I really enjoyed that. Being able to be angry as a Black woman, though, I think is accepting the other ways that anger show up, because I think Black women aren't allowed to be sad either. Black women are not allowed to have a lot of different emotions. And for me, that meant like, I didn't cry either. So I didn't rage, but I also didn't cry. And I don't think I laughed as hard as, I laughed, the hardest I've ever laughed is like now, because everything is pretty ridiculous. Suppressing emotion completely by not being able to be angry, especially because I worked in court. I worked for General Motors. I'm in Detroit, so I worked for Ford Motor Company. I worked for General Motors. I worked for a academic publishing company. So I worked for like real corporations, and it was 100% not acceptable for anybody really to be much of a rage monster. But you would see that a white dude could do it. He could have an episode, and then, Bill comes in the next week and everybody's fine with him. He's fine. He just popped off a little. I remember, I don't know, something happened and I dared show some emotion. And this was after I found human design. Like I had an emotional outburst, not at anyone in the office. It wasn't even related to anybody at the office. And when I later quit that job, there were rumors about me. I'm like, what the heck? That is so weird. And it showed me that there is some type of unconscious programming. And that's what conditioning is. You know, is it conditioning around women? Is it conditioning about my Blackness? It didn't really matter. All I know is that I did get a different version of attention based on something. They can't just be like, oh, Adrienne special. It is something about, you know, the meat suit that you occupy, this spacesuit that you're in. And, but it gives me a lot of opportunities as well. You know, it gives me a lot of opportunities to play with it and to discover more about it. Because if I want allies who have bias against me, sometimes I use their bias against them.
Okay.
I had to, yeah.
Explain.
Yeah. So, Zora and I, so Zora's my daughter, for anybody listening. Zora and I are in an incubator, a tech incubator here in Detroit. And there was an incident where we were going into a physical location and they were going to have computer programmers come in and help us with our project. And we got into in this room. We're like 20 people in one room. So we're already setting up some weird dynamics. And they have assigned us a person to work on our project with us. I asked her some questions. I actually brought her chart right there. She's a projector. I think that she's brilliant, but she's literally the least experienced person in the room, programmer wise. Also, they have told us, we're going to give you this help, but we choose which platform you're going to be on. And we've chosen this platform. And I asked a few questions, like, can it do the things we want to do? And they're like, no. And when the person who runs the platform arrives, she's also in the room. They say no. And I said, well, this doesn't work for us. We can't really use this. And they sent the dudes over to me. Like, this room was 20 people in a room. 4 of them are men. All of them are in my face at this point. And I'm like, this is weird. So what it did was it allowed me to make a decision in a moment, right? I'm not going to tell you I didn't get the anger juices weren't flowing. But I was able to like kind of go into a different place to observe what was really happening. And what I recognized was there were politics in that room that I was not aware of, because I am a beneficiary of the program versus I'm used to being one of the people running a program or running something. So right. To be there being like, I'm in this program and these people have an agenda and I have not been informed of the agenda. So what I had to do was like, because I'm getting resistance right now for like no good reason, because they knew what I wanted to do. We've been in the program at that point for 4 or 5 months. They knew everything. So why would they suggest to me a tool that doesn't work? And that's when you talk about like the manifestor anger, the interruption of your own creative process, something that stands in the way. This was going to stand in my way. So I didn't understand why these people were trying to give me something that they knew was going to stand in my way. And it wasn't even personal. They had an agenda. They wanted to support this woman's platform. The other thing is, because, you know, I work with human design and it's very woo, we're in the Midwest. And come to find out, the platform they were trying to put me on had become somewhat popular for building church apps. So literally, we're like talking astrology and human design and woo-woo stuff. And the church, they want me on the church. So it was just, they couldn't even see what was happening. And I had to make a choice in that moment, right? Because anger is appropriate, but anger is not necessarily for action in the moment. Always. Mm-hmm. Sometimes it is. Like if you get chased by the lion, or you're someone's coming at you to attack you, you need to do the right thing. But in that case, it was about allowing these people to do what they were doing that day, and realizing like I could step away. Like there's going to be defined emotional people in the room. I just knew I could step away and the right answer would be not in that room with me. Right. So I couldn't make a decision in that room. Like I can't make a decision with other people. I had to do it by myself. And literally 2 days later, we sent an email. And actually Zora sent the email because we let the projector talk to all the people. The projector talks to the people. And she's like, yeah, no, we're going to go a different way. Thank you guys for your support, but we got to do something different. And it really, that incident actually turned into the best thing that ever happened to our project. If that other platform had worked out for us, maybe it would have been good, but there were limitations in there anyway. And we were able to bypass all of that. So just understanding that like an angry situation doesn't have to become confrontation immediately. It doesn't have to become shouting or even an external display. It just becomes a point of interest. Like it was like, what do I do now? Do I get angry and push everybody away? Or do I get really curious about what the hell is going on here? And when I sussed it out, I sussed everything out. I was like, oh, well, they had an agenda and I wasn't informed. I'm not in the circle of needing to know to them. So yeah.
Feel like you were able to use that gate 64 we talked about and say, oh, I recognize I'm feeling anger. How can I use this to move my agenda or whatever it is you're initiating, your project in this case? Yeah. How can I use this anger to best move my project forward in your relationships that felt with these people? And that felt really, really strong.
And I sat there, like literally had someone said something to me like that was, could have been insulting. Because I remember thinking in my mind, I was like, I've fired people more competent than you. I'm like, oh, but I didn't say anything like that. I didn't let that come past my lips. And I didn't even let it stay in my mind too long. Because I was just sitting there and like, why are they so invested in me doing what they want me to? That was, that became the curiosity.
Right.
Because I think that for manifestors, quite frequently, when someone's trying to control a manifestor, my question always is, why are you so invested in me doing what you want me to do? Because usually it's because of an agenda, right? And as a manifestor, the biggest things I get blindsided by is being blindsided. Like if I don't know what's happening, like if I don't know who are the players are in the room or where the people are, I end up, bumping into something, being interrupted and feeling that anger. And that's kind of what happened in that room that day.
Yeah. But now you found a different platform or did they wind up coming back and doing something? So the ones you're working. So This feels like a good time to just kind of say what you're doing now, because I'm really excited about this project that you were talking about that you're doing in that room or whatever. And now you've created elsewhere. So can you tell us a little bit about that?
Sure. So the platform we're creating is called MySpirio, and MySpirio is just inspired by the idea that people who do human design services should be easy to find. We found that it's not easy to find people who do human design stuff. For me, 8 or 9 years ago, it definitely wasn't. But even today, if you have really good marketing skills or are very vocal on one of the platforms, maybe you can get a lot of attention. But those people who have like really large followings oftentimes don't have room for one-on-one work. And there's a lot of people out here who have training and or are extraordinarily skilled and self-taught, who can help with someone's experiment, be able to clarify things for them. And I do think it's important that there's people like that out there who can do that. So MySpirio helps to connect people who are seeking human design services with people who provide them. And in addition, we are working on something really cool. We're really excited about the Human Design Content Lab. And what that is a collaborative thing between professionals creating really good content that is, sound knowledge, but also presented in more approachable ways that lead back to the people who create the content so that we can make sure that, like this particular thing that you do with Sunday Story Hour, that people can find Sunday Story Hour and that Sunday Story Hour is, not just findable, but as being promoted and as being is being shown to people so that we can make sure that good content is getting eyes.
Yeah. And I'm really excited about it. I can't wait till you get all the prototype stuff done so we can actually really get in there and use it. Right. So it's in its early stages, guys. So
yes. And it's, we're early startup.
Can't find me there yet.
Oh, and we'll be finding you there shortly though. Cause I think that what's going to happen is, for me as a manifestor, and I love that you use the word prototyper, like I prototype things, and it's only if the energy of other people shows up that it gets to live, but I don't have a connection to whether it lives or not. I made it. And then I will, it's like, I said about the relationship of the manifestor to the program. I become pregnant with some kind of inspiration. I give birth to it and I literally leave it at the hospital. So one of you guys get to take the baby and I'm going to get out of there.
That's awesome. Yeah. Okay. So we're getting near, I think we're done close to an hour. We've got a bunch of comments, but I haven't seen really any questions here. So if anybody has any questions, I'm not going to read through all the comments. I'll let, we'll go back and look at those later because there were content or comments pretty much the whole time you were talking.
Yeah.
So it's been really great to hear. Everybody's been very engaged. Somebody said, what would the projector equivalent be? I'm not sure, Anna, what you're referring to. The projector equivalent to what? Do you know what she means there? Anna, if you can clarify on that. Oh, she said, I don't have connection to whether it lives or not. Okay. I think she's talking about, so the manifestor is here to initiate things and she doesn't have connection. I'm paraphrasing here, to whether or not it gets finished, right? By somebody else, carried on, whatever you started. So the projector, I'll speak as the projector. So for the projector, I would say it's similar to the idea that, I recognize myself. I know what my energy is here to do, and I don't need someone else's invitation. So I will accept the invitations that resonate, that recognize who I am, that are correct for me, but I'm not going to care if you're at a place. It's not that I don't care about where you're at, but I'm not going to. If you're not ready to work with me, I'm not going to try to convince you. If you're not at a place where your personal journey is worth investment and you are not going to pay me, I'm not going to feel that means my prices are too high. I'm going to see that as you are at a place where you still need to see that it's worth finding a way to make it happen in your life and invest in it. I think that's probably the best. I don't know if you would have anything to add to that, Adrienne. With you,
I like the idea that so projectors are here to guide people, but you guys drill into the G center and see where a person is going. And I think that the equivalent is you're not necessarily connected to getting people to a destination. Like you don't have a destination in mind. It's really important that projectors are in some ways like clean that way. Not trying to get people to go in a certain direction, but giving them a boost in the direction they're already going. So being careful with that, I think. And then also, with the recognition, like if you don't recognize me, if I were a projector, I say that a lot, y'all. If I were a projector, there would be just a lot of no thank you. Because I think a lot of projectors get invited almost naturally. And that invitation doesn't honor who you are or what, I want to say, you have a certain set of skills and it's like, they're asking you to come do something that isn't in your skill set. And you're like, what? No, that's not what I'm known for. That's not what I do. That's not what I'm curious about. That's not what excites me. I'm not coming to that.
Yeah, that's not my zone of genius, right?
Yeah.
So I'm not going to spend my time in my zone of competency. That, The Big Leap, if you've read Gay Hendricks, The Big Leap, I mean, that was really, and we can easily, especially with an open head and ajna, and open sacral, we're like answering everybody's questions, doing everybody's thinking, don't know when enough is enough. Oh, someone wants to know my question, and we put all that effort into it, and that's taking away the energy we have to do what we came here to do.
Yeah.
And for a projector, it is to guide others into themselves, not to guide them where my brain thinks you should go, but to guide you to know yourself in a deep, transformative way that allows you to trust who you are in your body in a way that you now know, oh, this is what I know to be true for me.
Yeah.
Right?
I love that so much.
Yeah. So any other questions for Adrienne? I feel like there's so much more we could talk about. We need to like do a part 2 someday.
I would be down for it.
Okay.
And thanks for everybody that showed up. And it's really been fantastic spending time with you.
I feel like there was something when we were having our little pre-chat that you said, "Ooh, I know something about yin and the manifestor." And I know you were talking about all the yang, but you didn't talk about that. And so if you have just a couple minutes to end with whatever that was you were teasing me about, I would love to hear that before we wrap up.
Well, partially, I may have, maybe I did talk a little bit about it, but it's about the fact that the manifestor is here to like kind of get pregnant. Like we get pregnant. Right. All the men too. It's like we get pregnant. We get pregnant with an idea and then we push it out and we don't have to be connected to it. That's a very yin process. You have to be very surrendered to allow for the program to like put something in you and then you incubate it and then just very dutifully create it. You ever think about what happens when, when you're having a baby, if you have a baby and it starts from nothing. It's very little in there. And then there's the body gets built. And then at some point in time, while you are still carrying this baby, a soul comes down into this being. That's the same thing that happens with manifestors when we're doing things. It's a very yin process on the inside. So we've got the yang aura on the outside, but the inside is very yin. And I think that having like put so much emphasis on the yang, I think that has given a lot of the very popular content out there is like, get empowered, manifestor, your sacred rage. And it's like, and all this, these kinds of things, when the reality is, it's like, but what if I were a pregnant woman? Wouldn't you just want to leave me alone, comfort me and give me cookies? Like put my feet up, rub my feet, bring me nice things and leave me the hell alone because I'm hormonal. Like when I think about all the things that we would do to a pregnant woman, will you treat manifestors like pregnant women? Nobody else is saying that. Right? And so because in a lot of ways, and I'm talking about all the manifestors, the manifestor guys, oh my gosh, they have wombs. They are, that is the womb man. And they are sitting around pregnant with ideas and sensitive as hell to what's outside. And it's like, ideally, if you want this fetus to develop into a nice, healthy baby, what are the things that you would do for a pregnant woman? You would say, oh, avoid stress. You shouldn't be stressed out while you're pregnant. Just stress out the baby. Oh, eat well. And, that means, consume good things and don't consume a bunch of junk. And that means a lot of times manifestors have to learn how to avert their eyes. That's to me, the yin of the whole thing is that, yes, we're surrounded by this aura so that a very, very extraordinarily yin process can happen on the inside.
Right.
And I think, I have this, a term I use, it's called anti-strategy. And I think that, in some ways there's polarity between certain types. There's a polarity between the manifestor and the generator. And we always talk about the yin aura of the generator, but when the response happens, it's a very yang thing that happens. Building is so yang that, oh yeah, see, men, because gender roles, men are here to build, build houses, they build the world. Well, generators have that energy. It's very actually yang. So I don't know. That's kind of where I go with that. And I think that manifestors, if a manifestor could be treated like a pregnant woman, manifestors would be so much better off.
Okay. All right. So I'm gonna have to figure out how to use that analogy with my manifestor daughter, who would be mortified about an analogy of her as a pregnant woman, but it's a great analogy. Yeah. So, yeah. Right. Yeah. I love it. I love it because you're incubating this creation, right? And I think I could actually see that as an analogy for even other types, right? The whole creative process is really like birthing anything. Anytime we're birthing something in a creative process. But I think it's important because there's so much out there about manifestors that is such harsh teachings and such yang teachings. So I think it is really beautiful to bring it back to that. And I want to thank you so much, Adrienne. This has been such a great conversation. And I appreciate everybody who found us and then found us again or whatever. And, this is a first. And I just want to say it's just so, of course, it happened with you, the same person who, when you're presenting at conference, the fire alarm went off and we all had to walk down 8 flights of stairs and then come back up, right? Who's meant to be here will be here, right? So I want to thank everybody who's watching and live or in the replays. And then, Adrienne, how can people connect with you if they would like to?
Well, if you're on Facebook, just find me there. My name's Adrienne Roach, or you can find me at ManiSisters. But if you are a human design professional, I really would love to have you in our human design professionals group. So if you look that up, you can find us on Facebook.
And you'll put a link in the comments afterwards if you can.
Absolutely. I'll make sure to link to everything. All my stuff. You'll be able to find me.
Awesome. And every week we share stories of how my guests have come to understand themselves in a more loving and empowering way through the lens of human design. How you think and speak about yourself matters. Human design can show you the reframe of not only your own story, but the story you tell yourself about your relationships. If you're ready to start living a better story, I'd love to help guide you. To work with me as a mentor, you can DM me or you can set up a free discovery call at kathybashanko.com. And I can't wait to talk with you all next week, and peace out.